Hey guys, welcome to another reoccurring episode on TRT the Podcast. This is going to be our Q&A. It's going to be popping up here and there. We've had some people throw in some questions and we're going to be answering them one by one.
This episode of TRT the Podcast is brought to you by Connect, fully electric tractors.
G'day guys, welcome back to TRT the Podcast. Pumped up today in one of our Q&A podcasts. It's not exactly going to be Q&A, it's a little bit, definitely questions people have in their mind, but more an overall general impression and definitely topics that are running through my mind, things I get presented with by meeting people in their different situations all of the time. Our topic today is going to be how to become a competent horse person. What does that mean? How do we evaluate that, and how do we build a pathway in order to become useful both to our horses and to ourselves and to other horse people around us? A lot of the time, we as horse people tend to develop a lot of splinter skills. So we go into learning how to lead a horse, how to saddle a horse, how to ride some things on a horse, how to do something to a horse or with a horse. We get good at certain things and we are not so good at other things. And quite often this collection of skills has no sort of connection or relevance to each other, hence the word splinter skills. No matter how long your list of splinter skills or how many years you've been collecting skills in horses, that list of skills and that amount of time is not going to collectively bring you to a fully competent horse person in your journey. And I will explain that as we go along a little bit later. But first of all, straight out the gate, I want to give you the key to becoming fully competent. What is the main secret? I want to give you the piece of information that's going to help you with infinite growth in your horse journey. It's going to give you that limitless feeling when you come towards a problem or you have to solve a situation or you're feeling stuck or you don't have the answers. The key factor is learning how to teach a horse something, but really teach a horse something. I'm not talking about lifting a finger and getting him to smile and giving him a treat. I'm not talking about doing a flying change or teaching a certain exercise or a movement to the horse. But I mean really teaching him something that is a valued skill, a valued life skill for your horse in order for him to be able to thrive and feel comfortable in our human environment. This is a different skill to being able to execute something. This is a real life skill that is of value to your horse. So being able to really teach your horse something of value will give you 5 main skills which will serve you in becoming more competent, in developing more skills, in growing in this infinite, limitless way. Those 5, I mean, there's probably 3,005 and many that you will be able to add along the way. But these 5, for me, are the ones that I recognize or I try to help people most. These are the underlying things, not a splinter skill, how to get your horse to relax or to stand still or to execute a certain movement. But being able to teach your horse will give you these 5 foundational things that are going to be the source in you being able to develop all the other things. Number 1 is communication. So when you start to be able to really teach your horse a life skill, through that process you will learn about communication, how to communicate that with your horse, how to have a dialogue, how to have a vocabulary, how to have an awareness, and the connection. You will develop a connection. Number 2, learning communication, learning connection. Through that you will learn self-awareness. Through that, you learn self-analysis. Through that, you learn self-improvement. These are the 5 things: communication, connection, self-awareness, self-analysis, and self-improvement. With these 5 things, you will learn to be able to diagnose. You will be able to read a horse's needs you'll be able to recognize what are the steps in order to solve a problem, in order to be able to help your horse to achieve a life skill that's going to serve him and enable him to live comfortably in our human environment. So getting back to the thing I said in the beginning about having a long list of splinter skills or experience or years of being around horses, and why that is not going to help you in the long run to be fully competent, to be fully useful to your horse, to yourself, to others. And that's in a lot of cases, I found through my experience of helping a lot of people with difficulties, with struggles of being competent, being useful, having the answers, having the solutions for a particular problem, or to be able to progress, to go further with their horses. A lot of riders and trainers that have been very successful at a high level in sport, with business, with clients, with students, they often struggle with the simple things. They end up with a horse with an extremely high level of tension, and they don't know where to start in order to allow him to be relaxed, or to teach him to be relaxed, to teach him the life skill. What is missing? What doesn't he know? What are the parts that he has to learn in order to be able to give that to himself? They often don't know what to do if they have a horse that is all of a sudden extremely horse shy. They try many things. They try to get him used to other horses. They try to control him. They try a lot of the splinter skills, joining them together, but the basic foundation of what the horse needs, that skill he needs that is of value to him, is missing. They often find it difficult if you have a horse that's afraid and starts running when you're getting on. These sorts of things, they lie in that basic foundation of giving a horse a skill in order to serve him and to allow him to be comfortable. And it's because they're relying on these splinter skills and that they have skipped the foundation that is not allowing them to be able to teach the horses these important skills, these important life skills. Most riders, of course, have gone through an education and a focus of getting on a horse and trying to do something to him or with him in order to be able to execute essential requirements for their given discipline. But these elements, working on being able to execute a good dressage test or a good jumping round, or being able to execute whatever it is in your discipline, is failing to recognize what is the important thing for the horse. And these elements that we are working on actually don't have anything to do with horses. These elements are human-created things. Now, I'm going to lean right in here as I say to you guys, this is the difference between doing something for ourselves in order to get good in sport, instead of doing something of value for the horse first, that is getting us into horse welfare issues. It's that exact delta. Choosing or finding yourself being focused on getting good at or practicing doing something of value for ourselves in order to execute something to become better or well-known or successful in sport, before we do something of value for our horses first. The horse doesn't care about the next level. He doesn't care about a higher percentage. He doesn't care about the next competition. This is a human-created thing. And it's not in the best interest for the horse. What's in the best interest for him, what he feels, that he has the skills and he's equipped and he has a certain level of self-mastery so that he can manage the task and he can feel like he wants to do it, and then he is empowered by doing so. You might all be thinking that this sounds a little bit difficult, especially if you are doing some self-awareness and some self-analysis and you realize you have a whole lot of splinter skills and you have situations where you're not knowing what to do with your horses. There are things popping up that you are unaware of. But of course, this is the same for everybody. It's okay to feel that we don't have all the answers all the time. We're all working on trying to become more competent and to try to be better at what we're doing. I'm just here to try to give you some formulas that have worked for me, formulas that I've been able to give to other people that have helped them. The important thing to remember is in the horse world, it's a very large spectrum. There is so much information. There are so many hours of footage on YouTube. There are so many pages of books. There are so many experts out there that can give you a whole lot of information that can make you terribly confused. You only have to go to a very large horse expo and walk through the trade stand and see a neck rope or a bitless bridle at one end and a 3-rein gag at the other end, and both people telling you that that's the greatest thing that you should be riding with and that's the direction we should be going. And sometimes it's then very difficult to find our way through that information, to be able to get skills. What's really important that can help to guide you in that is to be able to have a really good feeling, view, perspective of who your horse is and where you want to go together with him. And when we can have a clear, compelling idea of who our horses are and where we want to go, it gives us clarification of maybe who we need to source out to be able to give us the right information to go there. When you're able to identify and source things that are necessary for your horse to develop the life skills, again, getting away from the focus of a splinter skill or a technical aspect of riding skill to be better in the sport, but no, now we're focusing on life skills that are going to make things better for our horses, to teach a solid foundation in order for him to be comfortable. What is the type of horse you have? What is the things that he might be missing that don't allow him to do things easily in your journey, in the place that you want to go with him? So identifying that in your horse makes it easy to then source the material amongst all the masses of information that's out there. The other really important thing about becoming a competent horse person and finding a good source of information is to find information that is going to innately fit you. Who is someone that you can identify with? Quite often we sometimes go to the person that's most famous or has the most success or accolades or has the most students, or you see the most in books or in videos. But unless that person can really relate, or you can relate to that person, you can really connect with them on a level where they innately fit you, you understand what they're saying, you really know that where they're coming from and what their purpose is and what their intention is the same as what your purpose and what your intention is with your horse. Someone that has similar values, someone that has the same sense and feeling about horses that you do. If you are having these core values and that person innately fits you, becoming competent by sourcing information, absorbing information, being able to practice information, this process is going to be more effortless. And so it might seem a big thing to be able to say, okay, I have to change my perspective in order to become more useful to myself, more useful to my horse, more useful to other people around me that I want to share ideas with. And where do I go to source the right information? When these things are clear in your mind, you start to source the information that empowers you and lets you think, oh my God, I've been totally unaware of this being a difficulty for my horse, and now I recognize the difficulty. I knew which information I needed to go. I knew which person I needed to get it from. I have the information. I work with my horse. I'm starting to find solutions. He's more comfortable, more relaxed, more willing, more happy than I've ever experienced before. And what does that make you? Also more happy. So these points are important to remember in creating clarity and being able to make sometimes really difficult transitions. Some people, it's too hard to make that transition. It's too hard to go from this dream of always wanting to ride at the Olympics, or the goal of being able to want to ride at this level, or make a clear round at 160, or whatever it is. We get very fixated on these goals, and sometimes it's very hard to make that transition. But in the end, what are we chasing? Are we really chasing the goal? When we get there and we achieve it, think about the last goal you had and you went out and you achieved that. You wanted to get 70% in the dressage test and you for years were trying to do that. And then you got that. And the very second you got it, how did you feel? You wanted to ride that first round 140 jumping. You wanted to run your first clear cross country at a certain level. You wanted to perform your first vaulting test and you did it flawlessly with no mistakes. And you've wanted that for years. And then you get there and you did it. And then you realize that wasn't it. And then you make the new goal and the new task. And then we realize it's a feeling we're chasing. And it's a feeling that we can achieve on a daily basis. And often that feeling is given to us when we focus on skills that are going to improve the daily experience and the quality and the value of our horses' lives on a daily basis. And that's the switch between the focus on a splinter skill in order to serve us in the thing we want to achieve, and we replace that with a life skill that is going to serve our horses first in order for them to be comfortable, in order for you to become a team and achieve those things eventually by yourself. And when you get there, of course, it's nice to have achieved it, but the journey along the way is much more rewarding. You're much more happy. You feel like there's not a piece missing, that there's not someone that can get you off track, can push you off the rails. You don't get to a stage where you think, I have to call Tristan because my horse has this problem and I don't know what to do and I'm at my wit's end. You start to empower yourself by giving yourself the source of knowledge that's necessary for you to be able to thrive, also together with your horse. So don't be fooled, and don't be fooling ourselves that because someone is riding at a high level and they've achieved a lot of things, that they necessarily know something about horses. Because of this focus, they can know something about riding and at a high level of their chosen discipline, or a number of them if they're doing more disciplines, but that does not always mean that they know what is actually going on with their horse. That shift in focus of competing, being good at that discipline, being successful, that requires a lot of a person's time. It takes years to be able to develop those skills in riding. But if we're developing only those skills and then we forget to look at the foundation and the important elements that allow our horses to be able to do the things we want to do in the environments we want to do them at the level of expectation that our sport or your discipline requires, then in the end we are going to be forced to fail. We will go down the wrong path. We will get to a point where we don't have the answers. We come into frustration. We do things we may not necessarily do because we run out of answers. The old saying of when the knowledge stops, the frustration begins. So all of those things is that switch of focus. It's being able to realize that the foundational part, what is important to our horses, should come first before the part about developing the skills. This is the reason why so many horses have come to my stable, because the focus was on the human designed thing and not on the horse first. Things are often going on with your horse without you knowing it. And you hear the old story, people say, oh, he was going along really fine and he's been doing this young horse competition and he was really successful, and this out of nowhere he just all of a sudden started to be afraid in the warming up, or horse shy, or afraid of the mirrors. He was fine to break in and start and ride, but then out of nowhere. And that's the part where people are focusing on the technical aspect. They're focusing on the splinter skills that are required to be successful in their given sport, where their goals and achievements and their aspirations lie. And they're not focusing on what is important for the horse, means that it's going on without us knowing. It came out of nowhere. There is no nowhere. It's just a place we didn't recognize yet. So, of course, another version of this where you might be feeling, okay, this is difficult. How do I make this transition? Am I a competent horse person? You start to question it. You might be having a situation at home where you have one horse at home and you're riding for pleasure and you get on perfectly with that horse. You ride in the forest and he's totally relaxed all the time and you have a great relationship and you do all the things that you love. But now you question, does that make me a competent horse person? What happens when I get the next horse? Does that mean I have to start all over again? If you are having a string of splinter skills that you've developed in order to get to do something to that horse or with that horse, to get him to do something that's very specialized to that horse. So you want to be able to ride a half pass, and that horse, you had to put the leg there and the rein here and the pressure here, and that enabled you to be able to get him to perform the half pass. And, he was a horse that was a pleaser, and you only had to go and take him to the arena a few times, and he got used to it, and he said, oh, this experience didn't kill me. You wanted to ride him in the forest, and you went a few times, and he got used to the forest, and he was a pleaser, and he got used to it and realized, well, that experience didn't kill me. And then from then on, it was never a problem. But of course, in our lifetime, if we want to continue with horses, just like our dogs and some of our other pets, we don't have one horse for our whole life and we have to get the next horse. And then we apply those skills. And quite often we get to a point where we think, well, this isn't working. My other horse, I just put him on the trailer and I went for one drive and he got relaxed and then he was okay. But this horse really has a problem. He's afraid of the noise when he's inside. He's afraid of being closed in. I have that my previous horse, I just went out in the forest and now I wanted a more pretty modern horse, and he's retired now, and this new horse has a heightened level of sensitivity, and because of the modern breeding, he is now having a higher level of natural instinct. And when I want to just ride in the forest like I did with my other horse, it's not working because he's all of a sudden spooky and he sees the birds fly up. So then again, of course, going back to focusing on what do our horses need, what are the life skills in what we can teach them in order for them to be able to manage all the situations we're putting them in, that should be our focus, going back and learning a basic foundation of what our horses need, the awareness and the understanding of the body, the connection, a good order of movement so that they feel in their body that they're empowered by their physiology and they can move through any space you take them because they understand their body. We've taught them the elements in which they're going to experience in the environment, movement, touch, sound, approach. These elements live in all the things in our environment that maybe didn't affect the old horse you were riding, but very much affect the new horse you are riding. So really learning about these skills. What are the skills in which my horse needs? What are the possible things that he could be afraid of? Who is my horse? Is he a horse that is sensitive with noise? Is he a horse that is sensitive with movement? Is he a horse that has a lot of energy? Is he a horse that has a lot of low energy? And we have to learn another skill in order to serve him. What are the skills that are going to serve him in order for him to thrive, not just survive? These are the things we have to focus on in the beginning. If we focus on these first with the current horse, these things innately, instinctually, are going to serve every other horse you have. And of course, it will help you to serve all the other horses around you, that your friend is riding, that the other people are riding within the place where you keep your horse, your daughter, your students, whatever it might be. These are the skills in order for you to be a competent, well-rounded horse people. Competent meaning you are useful to yourself in order to get skills. You are then useful to your horse in order to teach him the things he needs to know to be able to manage himself. You are then useful to others through your experience of those first two processes in order to share that with others. So of course now you're thinking, yeah, but that's going to take years. It's going to take years to learn the things in order to help my horse, because traditionally we maybe didn't go down that path. I only had access to riders that were telling me how to sit and telling me how to technically get the horse to do something in order to be able to do the thing that I want to do. And now I'm so far down the path in this journey, and now I have the feeling I have to go back and follow another path. But if you think of all the years that we spend trying to get our horses to do something and having the undesired behaviors and hitting the brick wall, the amount of years we could be traveling and not knowing when something could pop up, realizing that all those things are going on without us knowing, realizing at any moment that we could be getting to that situation where we say, it was all good, and then just out of nowhere. So nowhere becomes the place you always recognize. Going back and learning the things that are important for our horses to be able to thrive and to have no limits and to have no boundaries. It doesn't mean, of course, that nothing will ever go wrong again, but you are more aware, you are more equipped. And so it's in the end not taking longer because you start to eliminate all the barriers and the possibilities of undesired behaviors, insecurities, moments where your horse is not able to handle situations, therefore you're not able to handle the situation, therefore you feel incompetent, and then your confidence, and then your self-worth is getting less. So going back, spending a little bit of time in the long run is going to mean that you win. You are going to beat the hare, even if you're the tortoise and you have to go back and take a different path. If you are not running into those barriers anymore, if you have the formula to be able to continually see what is coming and know that you're equipped before you go into the situation because you are getting skills that serve your horse instead of relying or focusing on the skills that are going to serve you, we are always going to be better off, and it's not going to take the time in our minds that we tell ourselves. Going back seems negative, but if you just think about it as going somewhere different, collecting information from here and adding that to what I already have, and then realizing how fast that can accelerate your learning and your experience and your journey and your possibility of becoming and feeling more competent, more able to be able to handle the situations and the places in which you want to go. So if we try to make an analogy, if we can try to compare being competent with horses, being a competent horse person, and we try to compare that to another trade or a craft, becoming competent on being of great value in another craft. If we think about building something, if we think of a builder that would be a guy that can go in and he can build a house from start to finish. He can build the foundation, and from the foundation up, he's able to construct everything that he has a very accomplished, well-rounded product. And then you have a guy that's maybe only doing the roof tiling. He's putting the finishing touch on the top. And then he comes to start to do the job, and then all of a sudden he's not able to put the tiles down in the way that he does it because the framing is not correct, or not the way he's used to in the way he learnt to do it. So then he gets to a point of frustration and he doesn't know how to go back and solve it. And then you may have a guy that is a specialist in painting or being the electrician, a certain part of the middle of the creation of the project, of the journey, of the making, and he sees there's an issue, but he's able to go back because he knows the foundation, and he's able to go back and fix up the parts in order for that to fit together for him to be able to continue to do his thing. So you have the guy that can, from the beginning, do everything. You have a guy that has a splinter skill that's very good in one area, but he often gets stuck and frustrated, and then the failure of being able to continue is there because he's not paying attention to or hasn't learned the skills in being able to go back or move forward to progress. And then, of course, you have the guy that is specializing in a certain area, and so he's able to help himself. He can come into a situation and read the situation and think, okay, I want to be able to do this, but I realize that actually this and this part of the foundation is not built properly. The roof tiler, if he knew the whole job, he could assess it and start to say, well, I can't put the roof tiles on in a way that I want to, so I need to go back and change the framing in order for that to fit, instead of just trying to slap them on and realizing they keep falling on the ground and thinking, what's going on? I keep trying to get on this horse and he keeps running off and he's afraid, and I want to get better at flying changes and half passes and all those things. And I only focus on that when it's windy and my roof tiles start falling off. I only focus on that when I have to go to the competition and he's more tense, and when I get on it's more of a disaster. So these are the kind of things a lot of people say to me in horses, that I leave the breaking in to someone else that would dare, or someone else that's more able. But for me, it's really important that you understand the foundation of being able to teach a horse what is the basics of becoming a riding horse, so that you know what is the ingredients in order for that horse to be successful, and that you can recognize what parts are missing if you get into a situation. And those parts that are missing, often with the symptoms or the undesired behaviors we have later on, is often part of a life skill in order for the horse to know how to manage himself in the world we've brought him into. So guys, this is the line to be able to close this topic of how to become a confident and competent horse person, so you don't have to worry about not having the answers or not knowing what to do anymore, getting stuck, getting situations that we don't want. This is the phrase, remember this: to become a competent horse person, you have to go all in. You have to know what is important to your horse. You have to know how to teach yourself the skills in order to teach your horse the skills for him to be comfortable and confident and to be able to thrive and not just survive in this world with us.